all know, a wonderful concert artist, but as all concert artists do, we do many different things. And I'm sure that he will have some words of wisdom to add to all of this. And we're grateful that you came today. Paul is also conducting the Harp Extravaganza in a few weeks. We could not do it without him. We thank you so much. Now, Tamara, and then Jennifer declined to be on the panel, but if we need anything, she's our lover harp expert.
Right.
So she's sitting up here to help us wherever we need it. Tamara, would you like to suggest how we go, and would you like to talk a little bit about it?
Well, I just started at the beginning, as in, like, how do you first get a gig as a wedding harpist, and then kind of going through there. And I generally get my weddings through word of mouth, and I do have a website. Some people have told me they just found me on Google, but I think you have more experience with like the Knot and Wedding Wire, and there are a lot of wedding. I mean, the wedding industry is a huge industry, and there are fairs where you can be a part of it. I don't know if Kristal has done that, but why don't you speak about your experience of setting up a profile on?
Oh, well, you know what? There's oh gosh, I think it's helpful to have a website, because that's where a lot of people can find and search you, and you know, you want to have keywords and enough substance in there that you know that Google, when they go through your website, they will pick up some keywords and they do a search. You do very well. There's ways to advertise. Some of them are cheaper than others. There's things like Gigmasters, which is a website you can pay to go in. There's The Knot also has a paid portion, but there's also ways, like if you have existing customers, they can write reviews on you, and you can kind of get their in for free as they write hopefully glowing reviews of you. Yelp, people do a lot of reviews on Yelp. Google Ads, I find that people do a lot of searches on Google, so you can do keyword searches, and so you can set up your Google profile so that you can basically, I think it's called Google AdWords, and so you can put in like, I'm going to pay an X amount of money, so that when they do a search for a harpist in San Jose, that you will either show up on this in the advertised sidebar or something like that. But you might just end up showing up organically anyways, because if you talk about being in San Jose and being a harpist, Google will pick up on that and just naturally find you. But that does take time, so when you're starting out.
But having a website where you maybe have some audio clips and say a little bit about your services. Most people don't post their rates on their website. You know, they
change.
ask.
I do.
Yes. you post them?
I do, because I got tired of people calling me just to find out rates, and I just
And then
thought,
they're like, oh, I thought you'd be $50.
exactly.
Yeah, that's okay.
But it does depend. So.
Well, it's amazing because, you know, I did this, I'm so much older than you folks now, but in my day, there was no computer, of course, and we would make a brochure and we would take them around to the florist shops and the churches and the dress, the gown stores. You know, it was all that way. There was no computer help.
Krista Strader is better than anybody at the promotion aspect of it, and she goes and visits wineries and gives them her whole thing and gets signed on as a preferred vendor.
Yes, of course.
I actually think that's the best way to promote yourself, is
So
to
that you come
go,
through the
for
venue,
me,
yeah.
get to know the music directors in all your local churches, and they will only use you. And it's easy. So that's...
Especially if you want to stay local. I think both Esther and I have just, have said, I don't want to do things in San Francisco. That's just way more hassle than I consider it worth. Driving an hour to play a wedding, that they're only going to pay you for what they think is the amount of time, but it's like you've just added a 2.5 hour ordeal onto what the actual thing is. I mean, I just prefer to play things that are very local, so that route of actually personally contacting local people.
And
Yeah,
then,
places you want
when
to
you're there and you're performing at the wedding, have your cards, because young people are constantly coming up and asking me for my card, and that way, you know, it's through word of mouth.
Feel free to jump in, Ricky, too. I should have invited you to this. I didn't realize you were coming, but we know you do a lot of wedding work, too.
I mean, yeah, back in the day before websites, it was
Yeah.
definitely just show up with your heart and be like, hey, can I play for, just play a couple songs, and then you play for the country club or restaurant, winery kind of thing. And that was the way to do it.
It's really become a very organized business now. Do you agree with
Well,
me?
especially
You
with
two being
weddings.
very quiet. It's really a big business now.
Like everything having to do with the wedding, everyone's saying, add another zero to, I mean, if you want flowers or whatever, it is a big, big industry, and people are spending a ton of money. That said, it's kind of surprising that people will spend a lot of money on their wedding and then balk at paying the one
Yeah.
musician that they're.
Ask for a discount.
Well, yeah.
And ask for exposure.
It's only gonna take an hour and a half of your time, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to explain the value, but outdoor weddings are very common here, so an organ is out. So you're gonna have an acoustic guitar, or you're gonna have a harp, or you're gonna have a string ensemble, and I think the harp's gonna come in less than a string ensemble anytime, because you only have to pay the one. But then sometimes you do have to explain, like, what is involved with, you know, carding the instrument, you know, with acquiring the instrument, whatnot. So sometimes, yeah, I have looked online in preparation for this, and I have read people's reviews. Oh, $400 for a harpist. Oh, you can get a harpist cheaper than that, and all these things. It's like, well, yes, maybe you can, and maybe you'll get what you pay for. But it's really fascinating just to hear lay people's, you know, their idea of what a musician, a professional musician, should cost for their.
But they're quite happy to spend $5,000 on a DJ.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which
It's
I
fascinating.
can never understand.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
Oh, they'll fight me for a discount, but
Yeah.
it's like,
But DJs, for some reason,
There.
can ask
Yeah.
for this amount of money in
Yeah.
London.
Really, I
So,
don't know that.
Yeah, huge money.
So, all right. So that's probably.
I would be very, well, I know one of the big issues for me, it's on this list, is that people they get you for your price, and then they start adding demands. Well, oh, and by the way, I have a singer that's going to come in, and she'd like to play it. Tamara, I thought maybe you could speak, or all of you could speak to that, because I remember Jennifer years and years ago was furious that people were asking her to make so many arrangements, and you said, I feel I should be able to charge more since I'm having to make arrangements.
Yeah.
It's spending all this time. But how do you guys deal with that problem?
I deal with it by the first thing that I do when I talk to a bride is I let them know that you don't have to pick anything. You can just let me do the music and I'll do my repertoire. You're going to really love it, but I'll be glad to play anything else that you want.
4 feet?
Nope.
But
No.
you're so good at that.
But people do, enough of them are smart enough to go, well, do I want a new arrangement that they just hacked out for me for next week? Or do I want to hear their best music at my wedding? And 95% of the people who I say I can do the music myself, they ask me for 2, 3 things that they're special pieces of music, maybe 4 or 5, but I never get these lists of 10 or 12 things. And also, when we do that, have your repertoire that you like to play, that you feel comfortable with, and say, here's the repertoire, and if you just let me have the music, these are the pieces that I would like to play. But make sure they know you're not glad to learn anything else. Now, of course, I can say that because I'm a mad sight reader, and I also know how to read a lead sheet and make up my own arrangement. And this is the one point I want to make today, is learn how to read a lead sheet with the chords and the melody, so that when they say, I want you to play this at my wedding in 3 days, you can play the melody in the right hand and the chords in the left, and they'll be going, oh wow, they played my music. But they're not expecting, an amazing arrangement of their requests. unless they see it on your list. So, really start reading lead sheets, playing the chords in the left hand, melody in the right, and then get some instruction or figure out how to develop those arrangements quickly. And then I sometimes, I'll get 10 requests, and it's like, yeah, I've got lead sheets for that, and I just get my lead sheets out and I improvise the arrangement on the job myself, because I know how to read a lead sheet and improvise. And you can really get to where you can throw together music very easily, instead of having to learn a bunch of notes on the page and having to research and find, oh, this arrangement's too hard, this arrangement's not right.
And we don't, but we should.
Oh, I thought we've talked about having Laura Simpson do it.
We have talked on our
Precisely.
board, have talked about having you do another class like you've done in the past for all of us on improvisation and reading lead sheets and how to, create style around the
Sorry,
lead
we
sheet.
didn't get that together.
So, yeah, so we will, I think that's very important, especially for these young people to learn this discipline, this trade. Some people just grow up having it all in their head and their ears, but not most people.
Yeah, I have to agree. I grew up playing in the church, so doing all the improvisation and all that stuff
Yeah.
makes it really easy. I do not charge for learning music because it's an excuse for me to learn music.
Right, it's a
But
different attitude.
I do tell them if it's a music that's not in my repertoire and it's not a very easy song, I ask for the sheet music and they pay for the sheet music. And I said, if it's digital, it's like $5-6 and you're paying. And usually I will say, I will limit it to new requests that are in part of the ceremony. Like I said, if I had to prioritize, I will learn the music for your bridal entrance first, and then the processional and possibly the recessional. But if it's something that you want to do in the prelude, that will be something that I will leave for the end to learn later. But the ones that are part of the ceremony, I will learn first. So, and I do ask for a lead time, so I say, here, try to finalize your ceremony selections at least a month before, so that gives me a little bit of time to learn new music.
An overview of requests, the bride will probably not hear.
Yeah.
That's true.
And if they do, don't be surprised if they come up right afterwards and say, you remember me asking you to play Memory from Cats? Would you do that now? And you've just finished. That happens all the time, because they go, oh, Memory from Cats, that's why I wanted to hear that. They're listening to it.
But there's an interesting thing on the internet, I just found it, it's under I looked under the wedding harpist, and under that there's this classic harpist, and it's a very thorough discussion of what we're talking about today, but this woman puts in writing how she charges. She says the cost is $25 to $75 per song, depending on the complexity and the cost of the sheet music. She says if the sheet music's not available, you can have the music professionally transcribed from a recording. The cost of this ranges from $150 to $300, depending on length, and is in addition to my fee for learning the piece.
Whoa.
I mean, so some people pretty hardcore. This is someone from the Midwest. But I was quite riveted by all that she said.
I agree with I enjoy having suggestions of new pieces that I can add to my repertoire. I mean, last weekend had a very unusual request for a bridal procession.
What was it? Oh,
Creep by Radiohead.
Creep.
And it took me a little while, but I actually looked online till I found a very nice piano arrangement that worked. I could work around it. It was just, it was a little bit unusual, and I wanted to do a really good job for her recessional. So I worked on that one.
And you said the groom cried.
He told me it brought tears, so he said, that's way better than the versions we saw online. And then I was like, he said it again.
Musicnotes.com has a lot of pianists that arrange popular songs and make it a little splashy. And I've noticed that they charge $10 for those instead of like the regular $5 for just the normal arrangement. But they're real splashy, and all you gotta do is cut out those consecutive kind of like chords and just do arpeggios in it, and all of a sudden you make it very heartbeat. It's worked for me.
And it saves a lot of time, and you can get a really great sounding arrangement. yeah, if you go for the stock sheet music that's released with a pop song, it's awful for harp. You know, it's just usually boom, ba-dum, boom, whatever. I mean, so you have to completely rework it. But there are some lovely piano arrangements that are very transferable to harp.
Oh yeah.
But, you know,
It's really
minimal
good.
effort, and then you've got something new to add to your repertoire. And I played it at the next wedding that I played, and the photographer said, Radiohead.
Isn't that fun? I love that.
I'm always asked to accompany a family member who wants to sing something in the middle of the service. I actually have no problem with that. I love accompanying. But all I need to do is find the key of the singer. They don't even know.
Right.
So you kind of have to spend a few minutes with them, figure it out, get the melody on music or whatever, and then you don't need the melody, you just use chords to accompany the singer and just let them know, you give them an intro, and then you just follow them. It's not a big deal with chords, everybody's happy, and it doesn't take a whole lot of
Do
time.
you give an extra rehearsal free?
It depends on whether it's somebody I know or not. But I usually, before the service, I will get them. I would say, you have to meet me, for a few minutes, and I'll have them listen to the intro so they know when they start. And then I'll tell them, don't worry about me. I'll just follow you with a chord where it's appropriate, and it's perfectly fine. They're always very nervous. Most of the time, they don't read music. So they're delighted with themselves. They have a harpist to accompany them. And you just keep it very simple. Even just use fifths or whatever when you're accompanying them. But just make sure that they know what the intro sounds like, and then it's fine. Yeah, it's easy. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. I'm sure you do it with the liturgical.
I do charge for extra practice time, but I say I'm not moving my harp to wherever you are. You're coming to my house to practice.
Yeah,
And so I charge, not as much as I would for a performance.
yeah.
But if they don't feel like, there's a lot of people who are actually quite capable singers, and I say if they don't feel comfortable of me being there 15 minutes before, and you just do a run through once or twice, I don't charge for that.
Yeah.
But I do charge if I have to.
Yeah. That's why I just do it before, and I don't.
Okay, so you don't even bother. Well,
Nope.
it depends on the singer. Sometimes
No.
they want the extra time.
If they're just a family member who they're not professional, a few minutes before is fine.
I did a performance during as the bride and groom were entering the barrel room, and she had a best friend who was a jazz singer, who was actually a very good jazz singer. But she contacted me like 6 or 8 weeks ahead of time and told me, we figured out the key, I wrote it out, I recorded it, I sent her a video of it so that she could practice and tell me, hey, I want it faster, slower, whatever. And she actually came to my house twice.
Whoa, that's way more than normal.
She wanted to pay me, but she brought a bottle of wine. That was good. And I said, it's fun. I mean, to me, that was just fun. I knew she was going to do a great job, and it went off really well.
I always really enjoy it. I love accompanying.
Yeah. But that is one thing. Like I just upload. I will just videotape, upload it to YouTube with a private link to them, and let them practice their little heart's content.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we do have a wonderful outline to follow here, although we may not get around to everything, but for those of you who haven't played weddings before, we might just want to skip ahead for a second in that there are two things that are important, and that's how to understand about setting a fee, how much to charge, and then how to know the routines of the wedding as to what you play before, what you play for the processional, what you're going to do for the recessional, and who is going to tell you when to do what. So I will leave you with that, but that's one of the most basic parts that I think teenagers don't get sometimes when they walk in with their harps to play a wedding and expect that everything will be planned out for them, but it won't. So
yeah, the bride isn't necessarily thinking about the fact that you're going to need to know when to start each person's music, and hopefully there's a wedding coordinator who just say, this is what's going to happen, I'll give you the nod or whatever. I had one recently where she's like, I'll let you know, and I'm going to be over behind that pillar.
Yeah,
I can't see that pillar in the middle of my music, so she relayed her wave to the DJ that was over to my left, and he was like, song 1, song 2, song 3. So the cues, to know when you're going to start whatever special music you're starting for the family members that are being seated, if that's different than the the bridesmaids and the little people that are all coming in, and then sometimes you can't even see them as they're walking in, especially the tiny little people at the end. And you don't know when they're so you need somebody within your vision, not back there, who can then tell you that everybody's there and start the bridal procession. And then also at the end, you always need to know what's the last thing that's going to happen before they're ready for their music. If they're going to kiss, if they're going to do something, if he's going to just say, I would like to introduce first time. You just need to meet the officiant or wedding coordinator or somebody to make sure that you know specifically, because you don't want to start the recession over there.
And you also cannot count on the minister or the officiant to necessarily know. That happened to me one time when, I was the one that had to write down when everything was going to be happening because there wasn't a wedding coordinator.
Yeah, you
And
can't
he
count on
didn't know.
people being organized or professional.
Right. So I think that handles the cues.
Well, and also we're such a multicultural society now. We have so many different kinds of weddings that you need to be a little savvy about the different kinds of weddings. And I'm not prepared to speak about that, but I'll bet you've had some of those experiences. I mean, even a Jewish wedding, which isn't that unusual, is quite different, I think. And you need to know what to be prepared for.
And be prepared for a big learning curve when you do a Catholic wedding the first time.
Oh, yes, they're so
With
strict.
the Eucharist, with the whole Mass in the middle of it. And, with a Catholic wedding, always ask, are you doing a Eucharist? That's the
And no cops too, right? Or it used to be that way, no cops.
No, that depends on the church.
Yeah, each church
Uh,
is different. But
Each
some
church
of
is
them have very strict rules.
He said Eucharist. What?
Eucharist,
The communion.
communion.
Oh,
And the
that's all I
Mass.
do is Catholic Church, but what did you say?
When I was younger, the Catholic Church wouldn't allow any popular music.
Oh,
at all.
I was going to say that, they do not allow popular music.
Still.
No,
Oh,
no,
some
that's,
do.
that's.
It depends on the
Depends on
minister.
the-
It depends on the
Yeah.
priest, but typically they don't still, but it depends on the priest, so you have to double
Or
check.
sometimes you have to
They
get permission
allow
for a
the family
specific song.
party piece in the middle, sorry, I call it party piece, but they do allow that, but most of the time, no, you have to stick to liturgical music, I find, except, you can do polka bells, canon, of course, and classical music, but they wouldn't want was it pre?
Even the name.
It was very pretty.
You have to be careful.
I played it out there. I
Yeah.
played
Oh,
it.
you did? Okay.
You can use some of the new wavy Celtic-y stuff and they don't know,
Right.
but not poppy stuff, no.
That people would recognize, hey, that's.
Yeah, but it does depend on the priest. In Ireland they wouldn't, so it just depends.
Some Catholic church don't allow the Bach Gounod
Ooh.
Ave Maria.
Why?
Because Gounod wrote Faust, and that's about the devil.
Oh.
And it's true. I've run into that. Oh no, we don't do
It
that. one
depends
here.
on the priest and their
Yeah.
knowledge and,
Yeah.
so the older guys, so you have to be careful.
I learned that the Jewish weddings, you don't use songs like, News of Joy of Man's Desire. You don't do, I had to learn this was like, they had to specifically tell me, I'm like,
You learn
oh,
as
I
you
see.
go, yeah.
Yes, you learn it as you kind of bumble around. You also don't necessarily use the bridal march, the
Yes.
entrance, because they want, that's
Yes.
one that, so that's just to have something else in your back pocket that could be a good alternative.
A mighty fortress is our God probably would be appropriate. And that's a Lutheran hymn.
Oh, yeah.
I find it's always good to talk to the organist and
That's right.
attached to the church and just make sure, because they'll tell you, they're usually great organists, they love working with harpists, and they'll let you know if anything isn't right. So get in touch with them, and they're great.
Okay, so with the fees, we talked about generally finding one fee that covers all the parts of the ceremony, and a separate fee if you're then additionally going to play. I'm sure you must play cocktail hour a lot, don't you, for a wedding?
So could I just ask you, because I really don't know the answer to this question, but if I were 25, say, or 20. And I got a call to play for a wedding, and it was my first time. And it was just a wedding in a church, period. How much should I charge? I have no idea.
Sometimes the church sets the rate, and you have to go with what the church is,
Really?
what their rate is for the
Yeah, for the
musicians.
musician.
They don't pay as well as if you had your own.
But
rate.
you said something about $400, and I thought, oh my kids, the students asked me, and I say, oh, maybe 150.
Oh,
I have no idea.
Well, I mean, when I was a student and I first started out, I charged a very small fraction of what I charge now.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah,
So we.
but, yes, and I would say probably when I started playing, I might have played for $60 or $80, and the going rate might have been 150, so. So as a student though, I charged less because I was offering less. I
And
had,
getting experience.
I had about 45 minutes of music, and that was what you were gonna get, so, don't lose the rings at home and make me keep playing it 3 times.
Right, yeah,
Which
yeah.
happened when I was 16, and that was all
But
the
you hear
music I
what
had,
she's saying,
so.
45 minutes of music, you've gotta have that in your repertoire that you can play.
At a minimum, yeah. Yeah,
Stuff always happens.
yes.
Stuff
Yes,
that they forget
no
to do.
wedding ever
It
starts on
always
time.
will be late. Yeah, it's always.
But then, I also included a list in there. I wrote some arrangements that are very pretty and not difficult. All the Daniel Burton arrangements.
Yeah.
He does a lovely job of many pieces that are, standard classical pieces, and they're not gonna take you all year long.
And pretty
They're-
suitable for lover her too.
Yeah, a lot of them are, but, yeah, so, I mean, you could build up your repertoire, but it's much better to play the songs that you play well. Yeah, there's quite a few in there.
But it doesn't have to be the big concert pieces, you don't have to be playing lots.
But you could, if those are the ones you're comfortable with, but I would definitely say, play the music that you are comfortable with, and it's not gonna make you nervous to play when you're starting out.
Right, good.
Yes, and when you get old, do the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Nardia, you're being very quiet. She's probably played more weddings than anybody I know.
A couple thousand.
Wow.
And corporate parties and other things.
But I mean,
Yeah.
you said you'll speak up
Oh,
when you
yes, I
feel
used
the
to do
move.
3 or
Right,
4
you're
or
right.
5 gigs
Yeah.
a
But the
week.
setting rates, I looked all over the internet as far as I could find around the country of what people publicize their rates. And, it varies by, that was in my original long one, but,
Yeah,
I mean, they were all over the place. There were a few people that were in the 200s, but most of them were 350 and up, and they weren't in California.
Well, doesn't it depend on your area,
Yeah, California is an expensive
California
area. I
should be
mean,
very high.
it shouldn't be low. And Krista Strader told me 10 years ago she never took the harp out for less than $500.
Yeah,
So,
see,
I mean,
less than she won't take the harp out of her house for less than $500.
Wow.
What is the union, what is the cartage fee these days with the union scale? Any of you hear union?
I have no idea.
Are you union? No.
I mean,
It used to be in the 70s, it was $75. That was always added onto your price for taking the harp, for the cartage. on the harp.
Cartage. Always.
yeah, I always
Right, but I think it
include,
must be
I
much
write
more
in my
than that.
contract that it includes the transportation of the harp.
So
the price.
we're dealing with just your playing, and then the parent that has to have the car,
Right.
the car to transport the harp, and then the union cartage fee, whatever it is now, I don't know, but we should know.
Move your own harp.
In your contract, you should list all of these things that you do to prepare, and that will help your client know how much time you're putting into this.
Right.
And understand why it costs as much as 1/10 of the flowers.
Right,
But
you can
contracts-
specifically include the contract wording that, this fee is gonna include all the music before the wedding, any special music in the wedding, the recessional.
Practice.
And it's gonna include your transportation and setting up of the harp and any
If you did
special
an hour
music that
early.
you're willing to do for them, if you're not gonna charge, or if you wanted to charge a separate fee, specify that, you're charging a separate fee.
And then they'll say, well, how much extra would it be to have you play for the reception?
And then you say, I
Yeah.
charge X amount per hour for additional music.
Oh, by the hour that
Did you do that, Nardia?
Yes,
Charge
of course.
separately for, yeah. Every harpist I've found across the country, one fee for the wedding, separate hourly fee. And one woman even said in
Yeah.
half hour, one of
You
them
never
said
know how long it
prorated,
is.
one, I mean, yeah, it's, yeah. I thought that was a little bit, I have actually, trying to be friendly. I have always thrown in language that I would play up to a half hour additional music if it was necessary under the circumstances. I'm not gonna just go, whoop, time's up, you're in the, because things happen, and you don't wanna ruin somebody's wedding, like, oh, that person, she up and moved and when we were right in the middle of enjoying our cocktail hour or whatever. I mean, I just think
No,
it's
you wouldn't.
better to leave a good feeling that you're accommodating, and there are people in here. There was one person I saw wrote, like, I need to know the name of the person to contact for overtime and for, whatever, and I just thought, I don't wanna go chasing somebody down after a wedding saying, I played an extra half hour, I just thought it's much better to have goodwill, and someone once hired me for a different event, and they told their friend they were hiring a harpist, and she said, oh, not that harpist you have for your wedding. And I said, what happened there? And they just said, everybody in the wedding remembered that the harpist was a pain in the neck. And on your wedding day, you don't want a musician who's a pain in the neck, who has some kind of attitude issue. So hopefully you've got everything spelled out in your contract, and you can just be your very, very nice, accommodating self when you get there. And
We don't have a sample contract, do we?
well,
You should do that.
yeah, you can actually look up online a sample wedding musician contract, and it will have, not specific to a harp, but will have a lot of the wording that you would want to use.
What I do is I charge for 3 hours, and if you only use me for a half hour, it's still gonna be the 3 hour
For
thing.
the wedding,
For-
for the
for
wedding.
So including
For
your
price, I have a
cocktail
3 hour-
music.
Yes, so if you have me for cocktail and wedding, that's great. And what happens is they go, oh,
Maybe we will.
maybe we will, we don't have to hire that guitarist.
So
And you
will
get to
move
play
venues.
for cocktails, which is where you hand out your cards most of the time. You get your next gigs. So it kind of encourages them to not just hire you for that. So, you've got me for 3 hours, you want me to do some more? And they go, oh, that's a really good idea. And then I also say, if you need me, that day you need me more time, it's $200 for the next hour.
That's very reasonable.
Yeah.
I always,
I don't charge much more. But,
So when I do
I make
cocktail
sure-
hour, I always just kind of like carry a little speaker, even if I don't use it while I play. Right at the end of my hour, I start playing some Frank Sinatra. Then I walk up, and it takes me a while to find them. Hey, do you want me to play a little bit more? Sure. Then of course, then I charge an extra hour. But then, oh no, we're done. Well, then I've already cut myself off, and I let that music go, and then put my harp away, kind of thing. And then it cuts me off where I don't all of a sudden just stop the party right away. And that's worked for me really well. A Frank Sinatra playlist goes really far. Really far. So that's what I do.
But you usually charge an hourly rate for your
Cocktail hour? Yeah,
Yeah.
200.
I
Yeah.
think that's pretty typical. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay, where do we go after
So,
that?
shall we give our rates?
Sure.
Sure.
Well, I don't.
Well, I mean, I
we
think
don't
people,
have
it's good to know
It's
a
good to know.
ballpark so
Yeah.
that people aren't undercutting.
And for those of you who are teachers, how to advise your students? I guess that's me.
$1,000 is like the price that I want to get. If I feel like, oh, this is a friend, I'll go down to 800, but nothing lower than that.
Wow.
Okay,
For 3 hours.
for 3 hours.
So learn those 45 minutes of music, guys.
So,
Learn the 3 hours.
That's for Paul, that's not for
Yeah,
just
Paul-
everybody.
Paul-
But he's
is
charged.
a
But I mean,
fabulous.
if you're doing 3 hours on 425 plus an extra 2,
Yeah,
that's 3
yeah.
hours. That's basically
good
the
money,
same
however
price,
you-
825.
Yeah.
so, and I would encourage, if you're just starting out, don't go below $200. I use a weird way of thinking, okay, I'm never gonna play for less than a nice dinner for 2 near at one of my
Which
nicest
would be-
restaurants. About $150, $200 for
Yeah.
a really nice dinner with wine. I figure at least pay for my meal and somebody
Well, I
else's.
think it's fair to the
Yeah.
parents too. When the young people go, the parent has to go, they have to drive.
Right,
Right.
they've got more than one
So
person.
200 is quite fair,
Yeah.
I think, for a beginning wedding player.
And as someone who charges by the hour, people, if you charge a high rate, people value your services
Yeah,
That's
more.
right.
so right.
So there's something about if you come in and go, oh, well, I'll do this for $50 an hour. They're like, oh, well, maybe she's not very good or doesn't know what they're doing.
And
or-
they won't treat you as well.
Right.
You charge more and they will treat you nicely. And if you let them talk you down on your price, you're only gonna have problems with them. They're gonna want the world from you.
I was lucky one time they just hung up on me right after Senate price. It's like, hello? Hello? Are you
And
still
that's
there?
okay. I mean, that's okay. If they wanted a $50 harpist,
Like,
they can
oh.
find a $50 harpist.
Well, they'll say that to me. They'll say, oh, I found a harpist for, X amount, 125. Wait, that's great.
What a deal.
That sounds like a great deal. Go with that person. Now, do you also do a set rate for the ceremony and then,
Ceremony is $425, and then
so that includes the whole ceremony?
yeah, and then $200 every hour after that. But usually it's only like cocktail hour because then they want, dinner's usually different, and I don't get hired
What
off
if it's an
dinner.
hour 15?
Yeah,
Do you do
usually
a
two.
prorated?
Well, no, like I said, I cut it off, so
Okay.
it's like
And ask what they
basically, I always play 45 minutes and then stop that little 15, because you always want that break.
Oh, the breaks.
And
You do
so-
45 and 15.
Yeah, 45, 15, and I mean, I'm using my iPad, so I'll go over. But like I said, I just press. It's Bluetooth. I press the Frank Sinatra. It's already playing at the same level I was playing.
I see.
And then I stop, do my break, or then I go, hey, do you want me to play a little bit more? Oh yeah, sure. Well then I'll do a whole full hour, And then of course I'll get cut off because dinner starts or whatever.
So are you not asking for your money up front? You're having them pay you after you're done?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always. I don't take deposits. I've lost a couple weddings. They all of a sudden, hello, are you there? Are we gonna do the wedding? And I have, but I always just like to get paid one big chunk of whatever it is. That's just me.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it's always worked
Well,
for me.
let's talk that around a bit, though. That's a really big subject. And what we're talking about is, these days, if you commit your time and say, I will play for your wedding on such a date, they have to give you half the amount of money up front. So that means they've reserved you and they've promised you that. So if their wedding is canceled, you still get half the money. And if it's not, at least, then
Or there's a
see,
clause of
they'll
30
tell
days.
you, they'll tell you, but then the rest of the money comes before you ever play the wedding. So it's, I'm not.
Yeah, the downside of that is, that's the way I shifted to, 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, I've never been stiffed by anybody, but it was becoming more difficult to find the mother of the bride or whoever with the
It's
check.
supposed with the check, yeah.
And I didn't want to leave that on them, and so I started requiring for the payment to be made a week in advance. And a lot of people, it's 30 days in advance. They want the whole balance. But the downside of that is you do have to know, you have to specify, this is how much I think I'm going to be playing. And sometimes that can be flexible, and sometimes they loved you, and they want to give you more money.
That's why I'm always like, there's always an extra 100 put in
paid
there.
you.
Like, hey.
Did you require an advance payment? Or?
Things were very different. I started in 1985 and did it for 20 years.
19 when?
85.
To
And things were totally different. There was
Oh, they
no
were so
contract.
different.
I had asked for probably $50 deposit that would reserve my time, and I'd get a check.
A $50
At the-
deposit.
Yeah.
And I would, run down to somebody
Exactly.
afterwards to get paid, which was very bad because I usually had 2 or maybe 3 weddings in a day. And
Whoa.
there was no time. There was no time. Let's see. I never got stood up by any client except the corporation. One corporation hired me for Christmas, and I had played Christmas party for that corporation for like 4 years. And they called up and set it all up, and I got there that year. Oh, I'm not playing there this year.
Oh, so it wasn't a wedding, it was a Christmas party.
Christmas party, which, it was a big deal.
Yeah, but so the contract is for any sort of freelance work.
Yeah. So things were different there.
And Paul, do you ask for payment in advance?
I ask for a deposit, usually, unless it's a friend.
Yeah, of course it is a
And,
friend.
So, you know, if somebody, it's like an old client or something like that, then I don't worry about a deposit. And I don't even worry about a contract if I know the person already. But I do if it's a stranger, I definitely get a deposit. And usually like $200. And then the rest of it the day of. Or I don't mind if they send me a check. I give them, I said, what's better for you? You want to pay it ahead? You want to send me a check? Or send me a check. And some people say, I'll just pay you up ahead, you know, and get me the payment beforehand.
No, that's very good psychology.
You know, and leave it up to them.
And more people are asking to Venmo the money.
To do what?
To send the money Venmo instead of, like, most people, a lot of people no longer
Young folks,
write
yeah.
checks.
It's
If
like,
it's the parents,
yes.
they're gonna
But
write
the
checks.
nice thing is, if you get paid right
to
away,
look
like
for
if
the
it's
check
Zelle or
like an
Venmo,
hour
I don't have
today.
Venmo, but I do
Or PayPal.
Yeah.
ask for a deposit.
If it's PayPal, you have to tell them
Take
to
cash.
say that they're sending money to a friend, otherwise they
Yeah.
take a
Well, they
percentage
usually,
out of it.
well,
so-
then you just take the cut.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, if they wanna use credit card, then I just take the hit. So I try to discourage that.
Okay, So if you,
You should talk a little bit
wanna do
also
PayPal, I tell them
about
they
playing
can
outdoor
charge.
weddings.
Oh, they cover the charge.
yeah, so in the contract, you probably want language pertaining to the outdoor wedding. At a minimum, that you're in the shade, that you have a flat surface to play the harp on, you,
Yeah, ever played on the hillside?
Dry service. I played in a drenching rain before. It was under a tent. It was dry, but the ground had
Right.
rivers. And I thought, I can't play there. And nobody would help me until I went to the bride and I said, I don't think I can play. And everybody suddenly went, what? I said, the venue's not helping me. They just kind of glossed over and said, oh well. And then suddenly,
Well, they all have so much on their minds. But we do need to discuss that, I think, for the younger people here.
Yes, you get, I especially made a plexiglass thing that looks like a guitar thing that fits my bench and the harp, and I carry it with me when I know I'm going to play on the grass. And I set it down,
yes,
and I have
that's
a plastic
brilliant.
thing with the harp and the,
Oh, wow.
You had it made,
I thought about
plexiglass,
producing
huh?
but it was just it's about this big, and it's shaped like this for the harp, and then big enough for the bench, and
And you lay it down flat on the
Nice.
grass.
flat it, it's light enough that you can.
yeah, I used 3/8" plexiglass.
That's a great idea.
Wow, that's terrific.
I have a big circle from Tap Plastics.
Uh-huh.
That it's just a circle, but that way you can,
Does it fit both the harp and the bench?
yeah, I mean, it's big.
From where?
And it fits
Tap
in your,
plastic.
And how do
There you
you
go.
transport it?
just
In the
slides
back of a
in.
van,
I suppose
right?
you
In
can.
the,
Slides under
in
the
the
harp.
Suburban.
It's no bigger than the harp.
I haven't used it in a long time, but
Clear. Let's see what I use fake grass.
You,
Oh.
wait,
That's
wait,
a good
talk
idea.
about this.
Oh, hey.
There you go.
I just have a big rectangle of fake grass, and a lot of times you're on grass with it, so nobody really even knows.
A
So I can
rectangle.
fold it up.
That's a great idea.
That's a, yeah.
It doesn't help with the flatness, but.
And then there's the issue of wind.
There is the issue of wind, which
Yeah,
is
you
why,
Or you
Which
should
is why
memorize all your
people-
music.
oh, but you use an iPad, right?
Yeah, iPad.
So iPads will solve the wind, but see, I
that's
don't want to scan all that music, and I also know where all that music is in the notebook, and I can't even get my head around what it would take to scan and find them.
But when they're in a notebook, that's not such a problem.
It's
with the
not,
wind,
but it
is
did flip during my bridal processional last week, which wasn't a windy day, but.
One of these days I'll show you what I have a really good system and,
Well, tell us.
okay, I wish I had it. All right, well, so let me just show you with this.
So key protectors are a must if you have.
Yeah.
And
So if
heavy-
it's on the
heavy.
stand like this, I have a, so on the left side, I have a clip, like a binder clip with the arm sticking out here. I have fishing line tied to it.
Oh.
It goes across the page. I do two of them because, you know, one isn't enough. Two other binder clips here and here. I might have it backwards actually, two here, one here. And the strings are attached to, well, for me it's a bracelet, so some kind of weight. It goes over the binder clip on this side, and then as you turn the page, it jumps up, and then it goes back down. So
Well,
I haven't shared this in the past, but it was actually kind of.
You have to bring this and show us.
If anybody wants, I'll send a picture later.
That's cool.
But all it takes is one disastrous time when you're trying to play and the wind is blowing your pages back and forth and you realize this is a big issue.
Disaster
How to
times
handle
are so much
it.
fun.
I use clothespins.
Yeah, I,
Things were
I
different.
figured.
But you can turn the page with that without,
That's the problem,
stop.
you can't turn it
Just turn it and it's done. You don't actually do anything with what's
It's
attached.
usually a problem only if it's in the ceremony. During the prelude, it's not gonna be as noticeable, so usually I try to have most of the music in my head. Maybe because I kinda am a little bit visual, so I have most of the music kind of memorized, so if it flips over, I can kind of fake it.
Yeah,
So you just continue on until it sounds like, you know, it's a good place.
Speaking, while we're on faking, I just, everyone should know that you can play any note on the harp.
Yeah.
And if your pedals aren't in a really weird position, if they're still in a scale, it's gonna sound right to the audience. So if you blow it, just keep going and get back on. You know that, I think everybody in the room probably knows the old adage, there's no wrong notes, there's just bad resolutions. So if you hit a wrong note, all you need to do is step to the next note, and when it harmonizes, you're there. You sound like music. So don't freak out if you lose your place or anything, just, play a few notes, whatever you play a gliss, play a scale, it'll sound like music.
Yeah, that's very good advice.
And don't cringe.
Yes.
Don't go,
forget-
yes, don't make a
And-
face, that.
Yeah.
No one but
faces,
you knows you made a mistake unless you go,
Yeah.
If you see me smile while I'm playing, it's either because I'm having a really good time or I just made a mistake.
Play the mistake again. I make it so it sounds like it was
That's right.
meant to be that way, and then it's just, more,
Yeah,
a little bit more
exactly
cement.
what you're doing.
that was what I was taught long ago. If you make a mistake the first time through and you repeat it, make the same.
That's a good point. That's right.
That's funny. Oh, dear. Be consistent. Well, is there anything else we haven't covered or questions from the audience? Who would like to ask anything else? So many details that we could talk about.
Yeah, and a lot of the information, everyone's pretty good at Google now. You can get a lot of the information by just searching around and,
Are there any lists out there for beginning people that want to
well, there's
prepare?
definitely, if you just Google
There's a lot.
top wedding songs, you will find any number of, and it's different for every person. Some DJs list whatever, but love songs for the last 100 years, of every generation are always listed as, and there's always going to be some for the last 5 years that are going to be at the
And there are also quite a few books. There's some examples here of wedding songs. Linda and Suzanne have 3, and there are several others.
This, Paul, I didn't know about this. This is wonderful.
Oh, there's only a couple
I've
of
never
those.
seen it.
These are ones that when I first started playing the harp, 40 plus years ago, I started collecting these, and there are quite a few out there.
There's a couple songs that I like using when I do traditional music. Like for the way I run the consultations, I do meet with the couple ahead of time. So I don't know if other people do that, or you just have them select the music for.
Depends if they want to.
Yeah, so I usually sit them down and I say, okay, this is what's the order of general order of what wedding ceremonies go, and you can tell me if it's different because there's all kinds of ceremonies. And then I have them select the bridal music first, and I work backwards. So I'll do the bridal music, and I say, well, if you want one for the bridal party and you want one for the honored seating, we'll work on that, and then finally at the end, we'll work on the recessional. So I start with the bridal music because I said that's the most important part, and that's the one that you're gonna hear, and that's the one that you're gonna, really care about. And so I guess my question to them usually is, do you want the traditional piece or do you not want the traditional piece? Usually some people have very, very strong feelings about, I really want the traditional piece. Well, then there you go, that's it.
I'm finding it less common. As
Right.
every year that goes by, fewer people, and they hear, here comes the bride, big black and white. It's like, when do you ever hear that music and not have that go somewhere?
Right, and I say, you know what, if you want the traditional, but you don't want it to sound traditional, here's some other options. So I have,
Change your pedals.
so I actually have one that I really like. If you look at Bridal Song by Jonathan Cain, it's a very contemporary version of the Bridal March. And it sounds very lovely, and it's very, very easy. And it sounds very contemporary. Or I do a mashup. So I say, well, some people feel like, oh, my mom expects to have the traditional piece, but I really don't want to walk down to it. So I'll just mash it up with another song. And I think the only way, I don't know if there's a way to kind of demonstrate how that. So if this is only if they want the traditional song for their entrance. So. So you have the traditional piece. Now, if you want it to be contemporary, this is the traditional piece. You'll find it. It's the same song, but sounds different. Sometimes, I feel like I have fumble fingers right now, but you can also mash up and so they're like, oh, I want to have the traditional piece, but I really want to walk down to Canada Day or something. So they have that, Here Comes the Bride, everybody stands up, but when they actually start walking down, it's actually to a different song. And I said, you can mash that up with anything else. You can mash it up with, this is O from Cirque du Soleil. So you have that you can walk down to, or you can take a popular song. This is... Like, I don't know if I can play it because I'm a little bit out of practice here. And, you have the exit music. Sorry, I'm not familiar with this harp, but yes, that was the beginning of the Avengers theme. Or you can, what is it? I had to rearrange that song to be in a different key, but I think. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Some people have done, what's fun about it, you have the exit music for like first 5 seconds, and then you kind of go on and you play another piece that's like, it takes people a while. So I did like for these 2 athletes, I did We Are the Champions. So they started walking and it wasn't halfway down the church and the people started, wait, that sounds familiar. So anyways, you recorded my bad playing, but yeah, that's kind of an idea of how like to mix things in. So that's kind of the fun thing about to me. I feel like that's what's fun about like working with couples. They can find something that they really like and it's personalized. They really enjoy, doing that.
Thank you. I would just say one other thing. You'll laugh, but in the second book of the graded recitals, no, in 1982, I wrote this processional after watching on TV the wedding of Prince Charles and Diana. And I was so impressed. Of course, it was in Winchester Cathedral, Westminster Cathedral, that long hall. And they had,
Did they have trumpet voluntary?
Yes. No. Well, of course they had trumpet voluntary, but I mean, before they had this band of trumpeters up in the front, giving a big fanfare. And then all this different music for all these little long processionals of bridesmaids and people. And so anyway, this processional that I wrote was really inspired by that because there's a trumpet fanfare between each of the variations, and there's a theme which is easily extended or cut. And then there's a variation on that, and a variation on that, and then the big one at the end is when the bride.
And you have that published separately?
I've used this
No,
one.
it's just.
it's
Melanie plays it. Some people, everybody can play it. It's probably not difficult enough for most of you to be interested in, but it
I
really
played it
works.
on Everharp.
It works.
It works on Everharp.
Oh,
Yeah,
I've played this
What
for
did you call
weddings.
it?
Yeah,
It's processional.
Processional.
yeah, it's
I
great,
like
it works
it.
very well.
But
One
it's
more,
just back up, yeah.
my favorite recessional is the Handel Harp Concerto.
Oh yes, and I'm so happy.
And about 80% of the brides that I played it for, I said, well, how about this one? You like this one? Oh yeah, that's it. That's the one.
That's a great idea.
Oh, wow.
It's it makes a great recessional.
That's yeah, I like it. And so when the Mendelssohn is nice, but it's really awkward.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of cliche.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
I like this. I don't think I'm familiar with it.
that's because you're not a little kid.
It's very pretty. Wedding bells is another easy, and everybody thinks it sounds amazing, but it's really easy. So it's Diana's
Wedding
story,
bells,
wedding
Diana's
bells, and she's lots of different variations and whatnot. It's really easy, but it sounds great. So it's another good one for lever harp
Well,
For the couple.
or the bed harp. Yeah.
So we have all this music if people wanted to look through different.
yes, so we said it. We'll lay it out maybe in the kitchen somewhere now. This has been fun. I think we should probably stop here.
Can I?
Yeah, more Nardia, absolutely.
One thing, I'm not doing concert anymore, or actually I'm not even doing performing. Those dresses over there, I would like to give it to anyone who would
Oh,
like
and
it.
I would like to add that you've probably made them.
Not that one,
She's a
burgundy
fabulous
colored
seamstress.
but the other part, the one I bought.
Oh, Nardia, bless your
Concert.
heart.
And if someone would like to give that a home and have some fun in it, that would be wonderful for me to have that passed along. And in the guest room at the end of the hall, there are half a dozen more dresses on the same style of that
Oh, Nardia.
burgundy one.
That's so nice of you.
Well,
She's given close to several of my students a few years ago that she made, and because often, young harpists can't afford
That's right.
beautiful
And
gowns.
it has very good arm movement.
We were going to talk about
Just full
the
enough
typical
to play.
wedding.
Oh, we should
attire.
talk about
Are
let's
you
do that.
wearing a
Let's do
suit,
that.
a black suit, or a
Don't wear black.
tuck?
Oh, wear
No,
black.
for
I wear tails most of the time.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're a man.
Yeah.
but-
No, I wear black.
Do you really?
I didn't used to, but
Like
now I've
sometimes
gone
we-
to mostly black, occasionally with a lighter colored top. But
See, I would never wear that at a wedding.
yesterday I had a
She's a wonky.
Yeah. No, just because black in weddings, it's not like white. You don't wear white either.
I did that
also-
once. Only
The
once.
people
Oh,
don't white.
yeah.
But it might be a cultural thing in Ireland. You just don't wear black to a wedding.
I researched a lot of harp
Unless you're
websites
a-
and I found a lot of black
Oh, here.
only. unless, or, you know, because you don't wanna clash with the
Right.
way.
So if
I
you
used
wore
to
that
wear
to a thing,
lovely gowns.
Yeah.
of
you wear that to a
different
wedding,
shades,
you
but now I
clash
just
with the
wear-
bride.
Yeah, exactly.
I wear elegant black, fancy black, and with
Sure.
beaded things and
Sure,
whatnot,
sure,
but,
sure.
but most often black. So, what do you wear?
Black is always.
She wears black.
Do you really?
Okay.
It's easy.
You,
That's
you
amazing.
wore,
All different colors, no black, I don't like black.
yeah, I feel like it's changed. I feel like
Mhm.
in the last 10, 15 years, people are kind of expecting the musician to kind of look like that.
Orchestra
To blend
black.
in.
Yeah, more of an orchestra.
Orchestra black.
I mean, every so often I will have a bride asking me what I will wear, and I say my typical dress is black, and if you want something else, you know, let me know. But I don't, you know.
Ladies don't wear white.
Yes.
I wear a light gold that goes with everything.
Yeah,
Black,
that would-
dark, gold, beautiful.
A light gold,
Right.
it's like, just goes within.
I think I saw like Kristal Schwartz, she's worn such beautiful like long gowns and stuff like that too.
Best not to wear prints because it doesn't photograph
No,
well,
no.
and solid colors are better. Because you will be in the wedding photographs.
I used to ask people what their wedding colors were, and I
Yeah.
would pick an appropriate dress
Me
that
too.
wasn't gonna clash, but, yeah, no.
But no jeans.
No.
Black's easier. Or, like a navy blue works fine, something that's just not gonna call attention to yourself.
Have we left anything out?
Do you guys have any other questions? Miss anything?
Well, thank you, panel, especially. Thank you all very much for coming. And for
We have a brand new harpist, June Locke, who just came in while we were here. I just wanted everyone to say hi to June Locke.
Hey, hi. Like your hair.
Good for you.
You gonna play for us? You sure about that? I hear you had 2 lessons, right?
Wow.
You didn't hear about our student education session.
Right.
You will tell them.
I
okay?
will, make sure they know. And Melanie, how many years have you been playing? 2 years? Okay. And you started last year playing with the ensemble? After 1 year?
She was the newest ever youngest and beginner to ever, I think, join the ensemble, but she just had a passion for it. She wanted to do it so much. And it worked out fine. Oh, well, why don't we just adjourn this meeting and, well, Gwen, you're the president, maybe we can just mingle a little bit. Oh, we want to thank Jacqueline for the food.
Yes.
Oh,